All right, there's the green light. Good morning. It's Total Fail Thursday today. So normally on a Thursday, we run that fantastic clip with the music by John Ward that he was so very kind to allow us to use. But it's just a couple of days before Pearl Harbor Day when the sneaky Japanesey awaked the sleeping giant and everything went badly for them. So how does one service member choose to celebrate the eventual victory over the enemy that was a result of that tragic day? We had an active shooter yesterday at Pearl Harbor. Yesterday evening around 6:30, a service member who remains unnamed, but a Navy sailor, shot 3 people and killed himself. 2 dead, 1 wounded. This happened on Pearl Harbor. So this happened on a military base in Hawaii. We're not going to talk a lot about what happened last night. I want you to know that that's the thing that happened. And that for the rest of the day today and tomorrow, and probably all next week, we're going to hear the Bernie Bros and Warren squaws squealing on and on about gun control and gun violence and mass casualties and mass shootings. Okay. This one, in all fairness, this technically barely qualifies as a mass shooting under the most generous mass shooter matrices. Most of the official ones, like crime reports, FBI statistics, require 4 victims. But of course, the mainstream media that's going to report is going to call this a mass shooting. I don't think that's entirely accurate. 2 dead, 1 wounded. As much as my heart goes out to you guys, and I really wish that this had gone differently, obviously. Here's the thing I want to talk about. Gun confiscation, more gun laws, are not going to be the answer. Okay, this happened in Hawaii, a state whose gun laws are so restrictive, you have to go and ask permission to order a firearm, and then you can go order the firearm. Wait. Go pick up the paperwork when your firearm is delivered to a licensed retailer. Take that paperwork to the sheriff's station and declare to the sheriff's department that you are about to receive your firearm. Get another piece of paperwork from them declaring that you have done that. Go back to the firearms dealer, pick up your firearm, which you must then carry in a locked case separated from your ammunition to the police department to check it in, and have it photographed and cataloged and added to the firearms registry. And then you may take it home with no stops. If you stop for gas or a cheeseburger on the way to the house with your firearm in your vehicle, that is a crime. These are the gun laws in Hawaii.
Reasonable gun laws, common sense gun laws.
Yeah. And on top of all that ridiculous criminal law, yes, I said criminal, because let me be very clear. If you have ever signed your name to legislation that restricts the right of the people to keep and bear arms, you are a criminal, not in my opinion, but as a matter of fact and law in the United States. That these heinous, totalitarian, tyrannical criminals are still walking free is one of the greatest travesties against liberty on the planet, with without exception. Every lawmaker who has ever signed in the affirmative onto a law which violates the Second Amendment should be incarcerated and executed, having committed an act of treason with more than 2 verifiable witnesses in accordance with Article 3, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution, which is the law. And next, let's talk about the other reason this should never have been able to happen. U.S. military service members are not armed in Garrison. With the exception of the military police, our service members are not allowed to be armed while in Garrison. So the very men and women who sign on that dotted line, a blank check up to including their ever-loving ass, to pay for your freedom, are stripped illegally of their God-given right, which is defended in law by the Second Amendment to keep and bear arms. No U.S. service member should ever don the uniform absent their service weapon, their issued sidearm. It may be cumbersome and obnoxious to try and have them all carry their combat rifle, their main battle rifle all the time, but there is no reason at all, that every U.S. service member in uniform should not be wearing their service weapon, their sidearm, at all times. Remember a few years ago, there was the shooting at the Marine Corps recruiting station. Was that in Tennessee or Kentucky? Remember that one? There's no way that should have gone down without one of those Marines drawing his weapon and returning fire. Same thing here. A sailor should have at least been able to whoop out a Spaz 12 and finish this before it got bad.
Yeah, what about a few years before that in Texas with the major who was a psychologist?
Hassan, yeah.
I mean, he shot dozens of people. And
yes.
I remember even then being kind of floored. It's like, but it's a military base, right? Like, that should have been over in about 38 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, it makes me wonder, are there these types of events at military bases in France or Germany or Nigeria or North Korea even? Like, I mean, it is what it is. It's baffling to me that a military base, from a certain point of view, is a soft target. And if there's all these comments,
I mean, it's very clearly obvious why military bases in the United States are soft targets. This isn't complicated. It's because they're gun-free zones. In the same way that any gun-free zone, like say you've got a movie theater that has a sign out front that says it's a gun-free zone. A gun-free zone is gun-free for everyone except for paid security and the active shooter. And that is where all shootings happen.
Yes, the active shooter is basically the highest form of a bully. A bully never picks on the defensive end who weighs 250 pounds and practices knocking people over with his shoulder 5 days a week. And bully picks on the kid half his size.
Yep.
And that's what the active shooter does. They're trying to be in control. It is a pathetic little power trip. No, but what I mean by baffling is not that I don't get it. I understand the math. If you're the only guy with a gun in the room, it looks like you win. Yeah. No, I mean more along the lines of, like, if you're watching the news and you see soldiers in any other country, they're armed. Even those ridiculous guards at the Vatican that wear like those weird gold uniforms, like, They're armed. They're armed. And yet our soldiers are not. I mean, why do we have this contract with Beretta if we're not going to give if we're not going to give our men and women Berettas? It, this is just awful. And I'd actually like to ask the question, if common sense gun control is the answer, then how did this clearly mentally disturbed person get a gun? If you've got to go through all
Oh,
these
is the
steps,
question how do we prevent drug users from using illegal substances after we criminalize them?
something like that. Yeah. It's not just rhetorical, though, because there's a little bit more to it.
Right. I
The,
mean, this should never have been able to happen because murder is illegal. That
not
should
even
solve the problem right there.
no, not even that. Not just the rhetorical part of it, but the process you describe involves multiple points of contact with the police before you get a firearm. But what's the point of doing the background check if you look funny? I mean, the whole premise of the background check of going through the FBI's database, of having to register your gun with the local sheriff and all of that stuff, and concealed carry permits and all of that. It's basically so somebody can lay eyes on you, and make sure you're not methed up out of your mind and about to go on some crazy crime spree. I mean, that is the rationale for these types of gun laws. So, not just how did this criminal do a criminal thing, even though it was a criminal thing for him to do. I mean, how is it that the system had so many points to quote unquote work and yet still failed? I mean, apart from the obvious thing that the government sucks at most things it attempts to do.
What do you mean most?
Well, when the government deliberately tries to break things, it's pretty good at that.
Is it? We're still in Afghanistan.
Oh, not for much longer if Donnie Two Scoops has his way.
Amen to that. Um, that's all I've got to say on the topic. I think, at least in this format. Um,
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Soldiers should be armed, and even going all the way back to the whoops.
yeah, I've got to either get a wrench on this arm or replace the damn thing. It's tired.
But I mean, going all the way back to, um, you know, Nadal Hassan. I that was the first time I ever became aware of the fact that soldiers are not armed. Like, by and large, like there's not a whole lot of mass shootings that happen at police stations because police officers wear their sidearm. In fact, the majority of cops wear their sidearm, have got a shotgun in the car, they wear their bulletproof vest, and they've also got a huge array of non-lethal weapons available to them
Yep.
at all times.
And most officers I know, um, they carry either open or concealed when they're not in uniform.
Oh, yeah. It's my father, the DeKalb County Sheriff, who, God bless him, apparently is going to retire in January. So good on you, Dad. But no, his police issue sidearm just goes with him, just period.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Doesn't matter the context, and it's not just a safety thing. That's his issued sidearm, and I think he's very wise to not want that thing ever to get out of his sight.
Right. Oh yeah.
So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
arm our soldiers.
Forget the risk of any other thing happening to it. Good God, do I not want to have to fill out the paperwork on somebody stole my gun?
Yeah, and probably get called in and have to go through a review with his captain and potentially
Mm-hmm.
lose his job and all that other stuff.
And
Just real quick, I'm going
I
to add
okay.
in. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, and then I've got one more thing before we close it out.
Um, Dankula, not like the Count Dankula, dropped a video recently, and he talked about his trip to America and all the different things that were in America. And one of the things that he wanted to do while he was in America was look at and shoot some guns. And he definitely did all that. And at one point in time, he was in Texas and he walked into a gas station to buy a pack of cigarettes. And he looked around and like there were all these guys that were just armed, like open carry armed, just a wide variety of, wagon wheel pistols, semi-auto pistols, whatever, but they were just all carrying. And uh, when he would tell some people back in Scotland about it, they'd be like, "Oh, didn't that freak you out? Didn't that make you nervous?" And he was like, "No, I was in the safest gas station in Texas at that point in time."
Yes, well, we showed the video a few, probably a couple months ago now, but there was that fantastic video clip where this dude comes walking into like a liquor store and he pulls out a pistol and says, "Give me all your money." There's 5 or 6 dudes standing around just kind of jaw jacking when the guy walks in. He pulls out a pistol and points it at the clerk, and the 5 or 6 dudes standing there talking, they all drew their weapons and opened fire and just, I mean, spilled his spaghettios right there on the floor without hesitation. It was fantastic. And that right there is the reason to carry. Look, I don't leave the house without mine, because here's the thing: you do not have a constitutional right to keep and bear arms. I actually dislike the language constitutional rights. There's no such thing as constitutional rights. We have natural rights. The Constitution enumerates certain rights that are explicitly forbidden the interference of the government. The government is explicitly forbidden that it should infringe on your speech, your faith, your assembly, your petition, and yes, your right to keep and bear arms. But the Second Amendment is not your right to keep and bear arms. Your Second Amendment is an injunction against the government to infringe upon that right. And Jordan Peterson has got something righter than many people, than anybody has had in a long time. One of the things about rights, people are always talking about their rights, and they never want to talk about their responsibilities. Listen, men, you have a right to keep and bear arms because God gave it to you. You were built with it. It is your right to defend yourself, your life, your liberty, your property, and that of others. And along with the right to do that comes the responsibility to do that. If you are not armed sufficiently to deal with an emergency situation, I'm not asking you to be a hero. I'm asking you to be a damn man. Arm yourself and be prepared to defend the innocent. Spare the innocent and only they. Do not tolerate monsters preying on our children and women. Arm yourself and protect your fellow man. Or shrivel in your cowardice. And that is all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I'm done as well. It's a black day. I hate it. I really do. This is the stupidest thing that we do to our soldiers, and I think we do a lot of stupid things to our soldiers. But we're not allowed. You're a soldier, but you can't have any weapons. Okay. You're a chef, but you can't have flour. I mean, whatever. You're a pest control technician, but you can't have pesticide. I mean, piss off. I hate this. I hate this every time it happens. It infuriates me.
Yeah, you're a lion, but you don't get claws. Nope. All right, boys, stay safe out there. Drop your cocks and grab your socks. It's time to go to work, and don't walk out the door without your daily carry. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, that was dark.
Yeah, dark, but
solid.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you later.